We are learning Mishna Sotah, Parak Vav, Chapter 6, Mishna Mishna 4. Okay. Now, we had a Mishnah before that taught us that if a woman was warned by her husband not to go into seclusion with another man, and she did so, and she becomes a Sotah, that you need two witnesses to establish that she went into seclusion, but even one witness can establish that she committed adultery in that seclusion. Now, the Mishnah says like this, the following case. Eid Omer Nitmes, one witness said that she nitmes, that means she became defiled, that means in the seclusion, she committed adultery. The Eid Omer Lo Nitmes. But another witness said, no, that's not what happened. She did not become tameh, she did not become defiled. Isha Omeres Nitmes. Now again, this is one witness against another witness. Isha Omeres Nitmes, Isha Omeres Lo Nitmes. As we learned previously, once the Torah says one witness is going to be believed, then it doesn't have to be someone who would be typically accepted as a witness. It could be anybody then. Almost anybody, or a lot of, shouldn't say anybody. It could be many of the those that would not be accepted as witnesses regularly. Here would be. That's why we can have a case of Isha Omeres Nitmes. A woman says she became defiled in that seclusion. Isha Omeres Lo Nitmes. And another woman contradicts her and says she did not become tameh, she did not become defiled. Excuse me. The Mishnah says Haisa Shaisa. She would drink. So what do we have here? We know that because she went into seclusion, she drinks the bitter waters to determine did she commit adultery or not. Now, if one witness comes afterwards and says she was defiled, she committed adultery, the waters, no drinking the waters then. But here in this case, we have two witnesses, right? The two witnesses that are, again, typically not valid. In the first case, it's just one witness. Typically, one witness cannot establish anything about a woman. About her status, or again, you have one witness wouldn't be accepted typically. Very often, a woman won't be accepted. There are cases where one witness and a woman are accepted, but this kind of situation where you're trying to say she committed adultery, typically you would not accept these people. But since it's after seclusion, we do accept them. But in this case, you have they're contradicting each other. So if they're contradicting each other, what happens then? They cancel each other out. If they cancel each other out, what are you left with? Nothing. You're left with the original doubt.
The water.
You're left with the original doubt of what happened during the seclusion, and she drinks the water. Now, it's very important to note here that let me read you here how they explain here on the bottom. Since the two witnesses contradict each other, the court accepts the testimony of neither. The Sotah therefore remains in her original position. She's merely suspected of adultery, and so she may drink the water to prove that she is innocent. Okay. Now, here's an important thing the Bartanur brings down. The Mishnah's case is one where the witnesses came to court together. For only then does the testimony of one cancel out the testimony of the other. Like this. According to the Bartanur points out that both these witnesses had to walk into Bezdin together. They have this argument with each other as they both come into Bezdin. But if, let's say, the case would have been like this. Let's say one would have walked into Bezdin alone. And Bezdin, based on that testimony, would have said, okay, she committed adultery. No drinking of the water. She loses her ksuba. And then the other witness shows up to contradict. So the testimony of the first witness had already been accepted. Now, after that, this one witness shows up and says, no, it didn't happen. In that situation, the second witness cannot contradict the first. Because if the first witness's testimony was accepted, then that testimony has a status like two witnesses. So when the other witness first shows up to contradict, it's one against two. It's one against one in the number of people we're dealing with. But the status of the first one, once the testimony is accepted, then that testimony has a status like two witnesses. And therefore, when the one witness first shows up to try to testify, we can't accept what they're saying because that's considered technically testimony of one witness gets testimony of two witnesses.
We've seen that before.
Could be. However, if they both walk into Beis Din together, which means no one's testimony was established before the other one, then there's one witness against another witness, or there's a woman against a woman, and they contradict each other. They cancel out, and we're just left with the original status of the Sotah. So the point is that if they come together when the one witness first walks into the Beis Din, it's one witness. But once we have already established, based on what they say and accepted what they say, then their testimony has a status like two. And once that already happens, the one witness who walks in is we're not even going to pay attention to him because it's one witness against halachically two. But if they walk in together, which means no one's testimony has been established, at that point they're even, they cancel each other out. So that's the first case of the Mishnah, which was, again, one witness says she was defiled, the other one said not. They cancel each other out as long as they came together, and she drinks. Now, next. Echad oimer nitmes, ushnayim oimer meloy nitmes. One witness comes and says she became defiled. And then two witnesses come and say, no, she was not defiled. Now, haisa shoisa, she drank. So one witness said she was defiled. Two witnesses said she wasn't. So now we're saying she drinks. So who are we following? The two witnesses. The two witnesses said she didn't become defiled. So haisa shoisa, she drinks the water. Now it's interesting to note that in this case, the Baratinura points out, so what's exactly the story here? One witness goes out and says she became defiled, which would say she can't drink. The two witnesses say, no, she didn't become defiled. So the Baratinura says is that in this case where the two witnesses say, now again, these two witnesses are not two regular kosher witnesses. They're the same witnesses that we've been talking about until now, which are witnesses that would not typically be accepted as witnesses. It's like one woman against two women. Such an example. That's the example here. It's one woman against two women. Just give me 1 second. Yeah. We're not talking about here regular witnesses. We're talking about the witnesses that are kosher in this kind of situation. The witnesses that are kosher in a situation of a woman who's gone into seclusion to establish what happened afterwards can be, again, it could be women, it could be slaves, it could be maidservants. But the point here is that we've got one witness against two. And the two witnesses say that she became defiled. So the Baratinura says like this. When the first one comes and says, they were in seclusion, I saw they were defiled. And he says, he says, it happened at this time. It happened at this point of their seclusion. And the two witnesses say, we were there too at the same time. And nothing happened at that time. So the contradiction between the one witness and the two witness are on a specific time. It's a specific point. And therefore, when we say that the two witnesses override the one witness, she still drinks, because we only know that there was a certain point of their seclusion that the witnesses said nothing happened. But maybe something happened before the witnesses showed up when they were secluded. Maybe it happened after. Because if we're the two witnesses to actually say, they bring this down here in the notes, were the two witnesses to say, we watched their seclusion from beginning to end and nothing happened.
You're in the same room?
They're watching through a window. Whatever the case is, they are present and they can see what's going on. Right? They're in seclusion. There's a crack in the window shade. They're looking through the window shade to see what's going on, and they see nothing happened. They were there the whole time.
All right.
If the two witnesses were there the whole time to say nothing happened, then she wouldn't drink the water, because the two witnesses establish that she didn't commit adultery. And again, this seems to be talking about even the two witnesses that are typically not kosher witnesses. But here they're accepted, and if here they're accepted, it seems like the same way they're accepted to say she became defiled, they can say she didn't become defiled. Okay, so when the Mishnah says that she drinks, it's got to be that they didn't say we were there the whole time and we saw that. There's witnesses that she was in seclusion from this point of time to that point of time. One witness says at this certain point of time she became defiled. The other two witnesses say no, we were there at the same time and she didn't become defiled. The two witnesses cancel out the first, and therefore she still drinks. She still drinks. Now, another point here is the fact that we say that in this part of the Mishnah, we say that let's say the one witness showed up in Beis Din before the other two witnesses. They didn't all three come together. One witness came to Beis Din and said she became defiled, and the Beis Din accepted it. And then the two witnesses showed up and said, no, she didn't become defiled at that time. Even though the first witness was accepted, which we said before, that's considered like two witnesses once it's accepted, but it's not going to be considered like two witnesses against two actual witnesses. And since here we have two actual witnesses, those two witnesses that again, although they're not kosher, they're typically not kosher witnesses. So we've got one witness who we accept here by the laws of Sotah, and two that we accept here specifically by the laws of Sotah. None of them are typically going to be accepted as witnesses in general. Nonetheless, when you're dealing in a situation where the witnesses that you deal with are not typically kosher witnesses, but they're accepted in this case, you follow the majority. And if there's two such witnesses against one, the two witnesses will be believed, even if the first one's testimony was accepted before they showed up. And therefore, in this first case, where one witness said she was defiled, and two said she wasn't defiled, the two witnesses are believed to say she wasn't defiled, again, at that specific point that the first witness said it did happen, and Haisa Shai says she drinks. Shnayim, let's conclude now. Shnayim oimrim nitmeis, vechad oimer loy nitmeis. Two said she became defiled. One said she didn't become defiled. Says the Mishnah, lo haisa shaisa. She doesn't drink. Why? Because the majority said that she became impure. She was defiled. So even though you've got one witness that's contradicting them, and none of them are typically kosher witnesses, nonetheless, the Mishnah wants to tell us that we'll follow the majority of the witnesses, even when none of them are your typically kosher witness. And in the first case, we believe them to say that she can drink, and to say that she didn't become defiled and she drinks. In the second case, we followed their majority opinion to say that she did become defiled and she doesn't drink. Have a wonderful day and an easy and meaningful fast.
My question